things going on right now.
Second offensive possession for Tennessee.
Hello and welcome to the Storyteller Experience. This has been a long time coming. I am stoked to be here. I am stoked that you are here to listen, to engage, to interact over the next 3 days of great storytelling. But let's start by introducing ourselves. My name is Sky Muller.
And I'm Christine Chalk, and mark my words, we are quite literally the least important people you'll hear from today. I mean it. We've got an absolutely stacked roster of some of the best storytellers out there. In the next 90 minutes, you'll hear from Barbara McHugh, who oversees all things marketing for Major League Baseball. We've got Elijah Cohn, who helped build Crooked Media from the ground up, and Michael Bucklin, the mastermind behind Fox Sports digital content.
And we meant it when we said we are the capital L least important people on this. We want to give you a direct line to the experts. So if you have questions throughout the show, just tweet them. Use the hashtag storyteller. Each of our featured storytellers is going to take the main stage solo on their own there. And then at the end, we're going to loop everyone back together for a nice interactive Q&A led by all of you at home.
Look, we've heard it from you. You've all got some Zoom fatigue. We get the sense you're not here to listen to a run-of-the-mill panel. So if that's what you're expecting, you might be in the wrong spot. See, Storyteller is built to be completely interactive. So grab your phone. Keep it nearby. You're going to want to be ready to scan in for Tagboard trivia, to tweet out your questions using hashtag storyteller. We've got prizes and swag that we'll be giving out all week. So I will only do it once. So forgive me for this shameless plug, but head to Twitter, follow @Tagboard, simply so we can slide into your DMs and send you some free stuff.
All of that, it starts right now. Grab that phone, swipe up, open the camera app, point it at the QR code you're seeing right here at the bottom of your screen. We've all done this by now a few hundred times. As our featured storytellers drop knowledge bombs throughout the day, we want you to tweet your favorite moment into the thread. Think of it kind of like, tell us you're at Storyteller without actually telling us you're at Storyteller, to go with a little Twitter trend there. Help us build the story of today's show. We are shipping out swag to our favorite responses. Something kind of like this. Says, write your story. If I know where to put it, right there on the camera. Got sweatshirts. We got swag all over the place.
So, like I said, least important people here. You're sick of us already? Me too. West Coasters, grab your late lunch. East Coasters, your happy hour drink of choice. Let's get right into it. We've got our lead-off batter. I make zero promises that will be the last horrible baseball pun I make today. Barbara McHugh, Senior Vice President of Marketing for Major League Baseball.
Barbara is responsible for everything from digital ad strategies and ticket sales campaigns to cross-platform promotion for MLB.TV and the Ballpark app. Barbara, the leadoff batter, thank you so much for joining us here on Storyteller.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Christine. Thanks for having me. This is exciting. And Christine, I have no doubt you will continue with the baseball puns, but bring them on. The more the merrier.
I've got some bad ones. So if you give me that window, I may jump right through it. But there's so much we want to talk to you about. But before we jump into storytelling at Major League Baseball, give us a little bit of your story. You know, how'd you get to where you are today, and what do you do for MLB?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you. Thank you for having Major League Baseball participate in this storytelling series. I think it's a great name, and excited that we're a part of it. So, as you said, Barbara McHugh with Major League Baseball. I've been really fortunate. I've been part of the baseball family for honestly most of my career, with probably a little short stint of a year and a half at the Sports Museum of America, which unfortunately opened and closed back over a decade ago. But really, I started my career at the New York Mets as an intern, and spent 6.5 years there full time, and have been on the league side of things for over a decade now, and really just grateful and fortunate for the experiences, for the great team that I'm a part of, and all my colleagues that I work with across the industry, as well as internally, but of course with all our club colleagues as well.
Well, the Mets have been Oh, go ahead.
See, fun
Go
fact
ahead,
about
Christine.
Sky, he probably won't share this with everyone. Sky, correct me if I'm wrong, you were a mascot for a minor league baseball team.
I was the on-field MC, so I was just screaming, getting everyone hyped, kind of like I'm doing here today. I'm just the hype man on this whole thing. I don't have the good questions. I just hype you up. But Barbara, you've been hyping
Sky.
up.
I love that, Sky.
I know what I'm.
Anyone that knows me well knows my love for mascots. So we've got something in common there.
Nothing better than a mascot at a ballpark. 2020 was crazy. Unfortunately, we couldn't be in the stands at the ballpark with those mascots. But before we dive in, I want to take a quick sneak peek at a video of some of the best stories that you and MLB told all year.
Opening day may be postponed, but unity,
I appreciate your lifelong support.
hope, and community don't have to be.
Welcome back. Yeah, man, how you doing? You good? I know you like that. I know you like that. How long you been back, man? I see the girls in the club, they're getting wild for me. And all the pretty chicks all wanna smile at me. These rap cats, man, they all got this style for me.
Baseball is back. We always talk about the season is a marathon. Well, not this year, Dan. It's a sprint.
I know they gon' fiend. Everything Mississippi to the Palm Springs. Girls from brunettes down to blonde queens. These young boys don't know what the dawn means.
We had a couple card tables going.
Good boy, Jake. Good boy. Chain choker, always remain sober. Don't drink liquor and all the game's over. Need a plane? I explained it to my broker. 3 bucks in the hood, top down, and ain't no.
There's not an American in this country free until every one of us is free.
We're going to keep letting this amazing video roll, Barbara. But while our viewers are watching that, tell us a little bit about your role at Major League Baseball and what you and your team do.
Sure. So as mentioned, I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing, and I've been in this position for just about 3 years now. And, it's been really exciting. We've been involved in a lot of great initiatives, a lot of great programming, and really our goals are really around fan engagement. And our goals are to really engage that next generation fan, in a more diverse fan base, really leveraging, as you're seeing from this video, the great talent that we have in our field with all of our players and our star talent, young, energized players, and really just bring baseball to that next generation of fan. And as much as we know that folks can watch baseball in a number of different ways, a lot of our more recent endeavors on the marketing side have really been around bringing baseball to these new fans or casual fans wherever they are. So you'll see from this video a lot really focused on emerging platforms and social platforms and whatnot.
And this video has been so great. One of my favorite things that I've seen coming out of the MLB recently is the MLB Originals. And I know you were a big part of that, Barbara. The mic'd up segment with Pete Alonso. There's just a number of different series that gets the fan engaged with the athletes and the talent that you have there. What was the main goal behind the MLB Originals, and how did it all come together?
Sure. So MLB Originals launched back in April of 2020. And, I will say we've had a lot of fun with MLB Originals. We had a great meeting actually even yesterday just to plan out year 2 coming up with the 21 season. But really, it was exciting, but also unfortunate. I think 2020 for all of us was all about pivoting and continuing to tell those great stories that we want to tell, but really being nimble and flexible. And fortunately, we were able to leverage a good amount of content that we initially shot during the early part of spring training last year, before the season was postponed. And we were able to complement a lot of that great footage that we captured with just being like everybody else, trying to capture what we could do from home. And really, MLB Originals features or focuses player-driven content for everyone. So you'll see a lot of different variety there, but also an in-depth look at some unique baseball traditions and rituals, such as our Quick Questions series. And in addition, you'll see a lot of behind-the-scenes glimpses into players and teammates' lives off the field. So really, it's all about content storytelling that engages, a younger and diverse audience. And MLB Originals is really focused on YouTube. That's where really the home of it lives. But at the same time, we want to take those stories and bring them to a number of different places. But the home of it really has been on our YouTube channel.
I think
and in
awesome.
terms of,
Go ahead.
Sorry, Christine. In terms of the Pete Alonso creative, Pete was Pete was great in terms of just wanting to do a mic'd up series with us. So we're really excited about just showing his personal personality on the field. And you saw a glimpse of it in this video, but definitely encourage everyone to watch the full series. It's a lot of fun.
I'll echo that. If you haven't seen the Mic'd Up series, you absolutely should go check it out. I think giving that kind of access to the players and their lives has certainly been something that I've loved. What has the response been like from fans, from baseball fans, from those casual fans, like you said, who you're trying to draw in, who maybe aren't as diehard, but this is an avenue in for them?
Yeah, the response has been really, really positive, and we're continuing to build off that momentum. So as a quick snapshot, in 2020, we were able to deliver 10 different MLB originals covering just shy of 30 different unique episodes. And the viewership part is what was probably one of the more exciting elements that we had, which 74% of our viewership aged 18 to 34. With millions and millions of views when you pull all those different original pieces of content together. So the momentum's been positive, and like I mentioned, we're diving in and going to continue to be in 2021 creative, nimble, and flexible. Make sure that we can do what we can in terms of the health and safety aspects right now, but excited for season 2 for our viewers.
You mentioned you just had a meeting like yesterday. Can you give us any sneak peek into what we can see on MLB Originals in 2021?
Can't give it all away, but I will share that you should expect to see a mix of building upon some of the series that we've already created, and hopefully some new different series and different content aspects that we're excited to unveil.
All right, we'll keep our eyes out. We'll keep our eyes out. We get it. A little teaser. I want to chat too about your player-focused marketing initiative. I know this started a few years back and has really picked up momentum, in the last 2 years. You've got over 850 players who are a part of the program. This is something I think is so unique for a lot of guests who are watching, who, maybe work in a league where they'd love to do something like this, or a team where they'd love to help leverage their, the players, or even media organizations who are joining that have access to great talent or personalities. Talk a little bit about how you guys have used players to really champion engagement here.
Sure. So I'm gonna talk specifically about our player social program, and because I think that's been a core piece in the evolution of a lot of other opportunities that we've been able to do, and really proud of our team of bringing this program to life, and it really, like I said, continues to grow and evolve. So Christina, as you mentioned, we are at about 840 to 850 or so players enrolled in the program right now. That is a 75% increase from where we were at the end of last season. And the program's really been about only for 2 full seasons. And it's interesting because when folks ask me like my earliest memory of this program, I actually think back to the fall of 2018 when we were in Japan. We had a Japan All-Star Series. And our team was really trying to create an easy opportunity to make sure we can deliver content to our players. That was obviously content on the field, but also, they're in a new country, right? They're exploring, they're sightseeing and whatnot. And we wanted to really help facilitate an easy, transition for the players to be able to enjoy their time, again, on and off the field, but also us deliver that content. And from there, we developed this program. We had a partnership with Greenfly. I'm sure many of our folks in the audience are familiar with Greenfly, and we were working with them already to help deliver content to all 30 of our clubs. So the player program really was an extension of on the back end and a technology solution to help us deliver that content to players. And really at the core of it, the program is really around being a service, being a resource for our players. All athletes, their time and their commitment to the game on the field is intense. And we wanted to just try to create a program that helped them make things a bit easier. So we deliver assets to them in all different forms and shapes and sizes, whether that's photos, graphics, original content that we create, motion graphics. It spans quite a bit. And a big part of that is content that we create live on the ground, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's a great program to date, and it's really, like I said, continues to evolve. We're really excited to continue to grow the program into the 21 season, and really trying to capitalize on our younger players. So as they're coming up to the big leagues, we're in a good spot and ready to go to help serve them, and also just be great partners with them.
Yeah, Barbara, we'll get into that live content capture in just a minute, because I love that program and how it ties in here with the players and getting them the content. The biggest question I had when researching and looking into the player program, how do you make it authentic, right? Like each person has their own personality, their own brand. When you're shipping all this content out to their fingertips, how do you make it maybe a little different for player A versus player B and things like that?
Yeah, authenticity is certainly key. I mean, as you can imagine, the volume and amount of content that is captured or just corralled and delivered is pretty enormous. But there are elements of content that we deliver that is so unique to the player. So I often, I don't know, for one reason or not, there's two examples that I often tend to call out really quickly. One is with Mike Trout. Mike Trout is obviously one of our greatest star players of baseball, and he's so authentic. Everyone knows he loves kids and loves his fans. And he had asked us to just take a photo of him signing autographs. This was back in 2019, and it wasn't just about taking a photo of him, signing the autographs. It was really about trying to get it from his perspective and from his eyes. So really, our photographer, our live content creator on the ground, had to literally stand next to him and make sure it was really from his eyes, essentially. And that was really authentic to him. Within a couple of hours, that photo was, posted up on his social account, really, again, from his voice, authentic to him. Another example is some graphics that we provide on a very regular basis to Blake Snell. Blake Snell is a pitcher who just got traded to the San Diego Padres, played in the World Series this year, and he calls his starts Bump Day. And on Bump Day, he always puts out an image on his social accounts. And those images are really authentic to him. He's provided feedback to us in terms of what he was looking for, and that's been just an evolution in terms of using, being a partner with him on terms of those graphics and whatnot. So authenticity is absolutely key. And those are, again, just two quick examples, but essentially, we know that not every player wants to, tout themselves. Not every player, wants to show certain game action footage or whatnot. Sometimes they want to focus on their teammates or whatnot. So it's really an individual by individual, whatever they'd like to see.
That's awesome. Awesome. My husband has just turned me into a big baseball fan, but I am a California native. So I love the Mike Trout story because I am an Angels fan down here. I know we've got fans joining from all over, but I personally love to hear that one. Like Sky mentioned, diving into the live content capturing. You were one of the first leagues to really move on this idea. You essentially have an army of storytellers around the league who are out there capturing content, the stories of the game, and getting it immediately uploaded to a space where it can be shared. How has this program evolved and helped build the digital footprint?
Yeah, Christine, it's interesting. I was actually reminded by folks on my team pretty recently, actually, that because sometimes we forget how much it has evolved. But we were doing this program, when flip phones were still a thing, and we were capturing, content in very early stages or whatnot. But again, similar to some other programs, this one really has taken off and really evolved over the years. And you're right, we've got content creators. We call them LCCs or VCCs, live content creators or live video creators, and they're on the ground at all 30 ballparks. Depending on, if it's one of our, if it's a postseason or something like that, All-Star, certainly we have more resources in place and whatnot. But really, it's all about trying to capture that content in unique ways. And, obviously, we leverage the highlights that are taken across our broadcast on the national and regional aspect. But the content that we're shooting here is really geared towards that younger audience, different angles, different views, and really want to experiment with unique camera angles and access around the ballpark. We also try to really focus on the content that we capture with more like reactionary content as opposed to action content. So really capturing those big moments, many of which you saw in the video, those exciting actions, a bat flip, for example, or a big strikeout on the mound. And really trying to use the live content capturing to tell those stories and drive baseball's most important narratives through that visual content that we're capturing. And as you mentioned, sort of the editing part of it, it sort of amazes me often how nimble our team is in terms of making those quick edits that really follow trends and create buzz, but also the distribution fact on how much we're just pushing out there across our MLB accounts. We share a lot of this content with clubs to complement whatever they're capturing and using. And then, of course, through the hundreds of players that we have in the Player Social program. And just to sort of wrap your head around a little bit, in 2020, we distributed over 530 pieces of photo and video content through this program. And that's just the content that's being captured from this live content team. And about close to 1,500 posts alone from the month of October for the postseason using their content. And what's, I think, in terms of trying to like continue to grow the program or whatnot, often it's asked like, okay, so, what is this actually producing? So I think that's probably one of the other fun things to highlight. It's, proof is in the numbers sometimes, and the content that we're capturing through our live content creators has proven to outperform other content on our social channels. So just two quick references in terms of numbers. We see 21% more engagement with this live content capturing that we do with a standard original game highlight. And similarly, we see 16, and that's on Twitter, and then 16% on Instagram.
That is just awesome. It's incredible to hear the numbers behind it, the numbers of just amount of content, which is hard to wrap your head around sometimes, and then how that content plays. I mean, it truly brings everyone into the game, or into that authentic feeling of being close to the athletes that they love to follow and build those personal athlete brands, which is really cool. And it brings me into, we've talked a lot about engaging that younger audience. Barbara, you've done such a good job of it since taking over in your current role. It's interesting because I think older audience a little bit on the linear side of it, right? Your digital audience, your digital footprint. I've read that between 13 to 34, it's like 75% of your digital audience is in that age range. How do you balance that? How do you balance to cater to maybe a little older audience and then also the younger audience as well?
Sure. It's a great question. And as you can imagine, often comes up, and everything is a balancing act, of course. In fact, if you think about it, all TV viewing skews older. So I don't think we're, extremely unique in that regard. All sports, scripted shows, et cetera, pretty much everything except children sort of TV tends to skew on the older side. But we're fortunate, we have an extremely broad audience when you talk about the age of our fans, which is certainly not a bad thing. And we work closely with our local broadcast partners as well as our national broadcast partners to really try new and different approaches throughout the season that will attract those younger audiences. I think our mic'd up content efforts this year is a good example of that. But we also work within our guidelines and those partnerships and relationships to make sure that the best content is being able to be distributed digitally. So, making those highlights available, as we said, to our players, to our clubs. And also we've created a new product that we launched back in September called the MLB Film Room, powered by Google Cloud, which really gives fans the opportunity to package together their favorite highlights and put them out on their own social platforms. So in general, I would say, we've got a lot of our efforts, like I mentioned, are really geared towards that younger audience right now. But at the end of the day, it's everyone consumes content differently, and we're just trying to do our part to make sure that we're delivering our game to fans however they want it and wherever they want it.
Absolutely. I can only imagine what a balancing act it is, and you guys are doing an amazing job at it. Barbara, I could talk to you for a few more hours, but we promised everybody at home we'd wrap up our show in 90 minutes. So I want to remind everyone, Barbara will be back to join us for an interactive Q&A. So right now, Barbara, thank you so much for joining us here today. If you have questions for her, tweet them out using hashtag storyteller. We're going to bring her back. I promised puns. We'll bring you back in the 9th inning. We'll close that out after we talk to our next two guests.
And speaking of MLB, it is time for some Tagboard trivia. That is right. We're bringing trivia to this event. It is sponsored by absolutely nobody, but it could be, and it definitely should be. Do you miss bar trivia? I miss bar trivia. All of us at Tagboard miss bar trivia. Let's do some bar trivia. Grab that phone, open the camera app, scan the QR code on your screen, belly up to the virtual bar. You are on the clock, 90 seconds until last call to test your baseball knowledge.
And while you are on your phone playing Tagboard Trivia, know that you are among the very first to be using the brand new Tagboard Interactive. If you're a Tagboard OG, you're thinking, I haven't seen this before. You're right. This is a one-click online polling so you can drive instant interaction with your viewers. Hot off the press yesterday, but if you want to see more of this action, check out Animal Planet's online Puppy Bowl bracket. It's powered by Tagboard, running right now through February 7th. Last final seconds, get your answers in.
We gave you a little wiggle room, but time is officially up. How good is your MLB knowledge? Let's find out. Let's start with question number 1, which question 1 was, which current MLB player has the most followers on Instagram? You all did very well. Mike Trout is the correct answer at 1.8 million.
And question number 2, whose number was the first ever retired by an MLB team? We've clearly got some sports buffs on our call today. If you picked Lou Gehrig, you were right. It was back in 1939.
I thought that one would throw people off. Thought we'd get some more Ty Cobbs in there. Question 3, Mets power hitting first baseman Pete Alonso absolutely shined in the MLB Originals Mic'd Up series. Barbara talked about it a little bit ago. What is Pete Alonso's nickname? Nice work. Polar Bear. Ice cold from Pete.
If you want early access to Tagboard Interactive so you can engage your viewers, drop us your email at the bottom of the site you just voted on. We've got you covered.
And right into the next one. Next up, someone who has been incredibly busy these last few months. Fresh off inauguration coverage, Elijah Cohn, Director of Digital Content for Crooked Media.
Now, if you're not familiar with Crooked, it's the political media company. Was founded back in 2017 by 3 of President Obama's former top staffers. You may have heard of their flagship podcast, Pod Save America. Elijah, you are employee number 5. Thanks so much for joining us today on Storytell, Elijah.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Sky. Glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your story before we get into the Crooked Media stuff there, Elijah. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so the Crooked Media story is a little bit of a fun startup story. So I was working at Fox Sports for our next guest, Michael Bucklin, in 2016. And I was a producer and editor on the digital side. And I had spent a big chunk of the 2016 election, unfortunately, in a hospital room watching my mom get chemotherapy. And when the election happened, I was pretty shocked by that result, but I still wasn't like a very political person. I just naturally started to pay more attention to politics after that. And then in the summer of 2017, the Trump administration tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And I remember just like working on sports coverage every day. And it was like a dream job when I was a kid, but like my heart was just not in it anymore. And it just happened at that point that someone that I used to work with at a company called Maker Studios reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in coming on to work on this show, Pod Save America, that I'd never heard of before, and help launch this company called Crooked Media. And so I went in, met the hosts, John Favreau, Tommy Vitor, and John Lovett, and they asked me, you know, what do you know about politics? And I said, nothing. But I know I don't like what's going on right now, and I know how to make people who are smart about politics look good and sound good online. So I think I could help you out. And yeah, took a flyer on that job. And my first weekend there was, or my first Monday there was August 17th, 2017. And Charlottesville was August 15th and 16th. And so I just never looked back, felt like it was a good decision. And like you said, I was employee number 5, and now the company has exploded to more than 21 podcasts, over 50 employees, newsletter. Just got one of our podcasts, limited series, adapted for Hulu. So the company's growing in a lot of like very exciting ways, and it's just been a crazy ride.
That is a crazy ride. 5th hire, like you mentioned. Now you've got this 21 show portfolio. I've seen you guys just cranking out content, last week's inauguration, the Georgia runoff, the debates. It's been, of course, a huge year for any political company that's working in the media space right now. And I can only imagine what a crazy ride it's been to see the growth of Crooked from start to now. And I know you're gearing up for an even crazier 2021 of content that you're getting ready to push out. What do you think have been the biggest, it's rare that we get to talk to somebody who's been a part of building something like that from scratch. What do you think have been the key learnings that you've taken away from building that digital footprint?
Yeah, sure thing. And I can add a little bit of color here about what the process has been like. So when I started, I was going from the Fox lot, which is like an incredible place to be. It's like I take my family to go see where I work. It was so cool. To the initial Crooked office was in the attic above a comedy club. There was a strip club across the street on one corner. There was a lingerie shop across the street on the other corner. There was a studio that we couldn't use the bathroom during. It was just one studio because the flushing would ruin the audio quality of the podcast. And every morning we'd have to wait for the bong shop beneath us to open their security grate over their window, so that wouldn't mess with the audio either. And so when you're running all of social, all of digital, like so all the strategy, all of the execution for that, you really do zero in on like the things that work. And what I realized and what we realized that we had personalities that people wanted to hear from talking about news cycle events. So we just have to tie those things in together and really lean into that. I have a whole tangent I can go on about trying to get video clips of a podcast and then put them out yourself as one person, but I can skip that for now because I would really also want to shine a light on the work that we do aside from just having those personalities putting out their opinion, which is we have a bunch of political initiatives that we've also leaned into. And I'm not sure that any other company does something quite like this. So in the run up to the 2018 midterms, we launched an initiative called Vote Save America. We're in the hat right here, which, we operate with like no revenue coming in from it. And it's just a way to drive our audience into political initiatives. So say you're looking at a House race in 2018, we would direct our audience to where their donation dollars would go the furthest in terms of ad buys, like in small markets for the House race to flip bets. And so by leaning into that kind of political initiative, which everyone at the company felt really strongly about, it was a way that we could have an incentive for people to follow us outside of the podcast. It was a reason to follow us on Twitter. It was a reason to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, because we would always be able to take the news events that you're seeing on your social media and drive you to be able to do something about it, to take action. So, I mean, I'd say those are the two things. And we can talk about this group thread concept in a little bit, but personality-driven opinion around the news cycle and making sure that people weren't just consuming news, but giving them something to do about it really helped us exploit our following outside of our initial success in podcasts.
No, I absolutely love that, Elijah. And we'll get to the group thread here in a minute, but let's stay right here with building this community that you have around Crooked Media and around your podcast and the work that you're doing outside of that, those initiatives and the help that went into all the runoffs, the election, and everything like that. There's one thing to ask your audience to do something, but unless they're a loyal audience that really believes and feels connected to the podcast or to the company, sometimes it's hard to get them to actually take that action. What was like the key, I guess, to building that loyal audience that when you say something, they'll listen and they'll go take action?
I mean, I think it really comes down to credibility and then knowing just how to like pull the right levers of government. So, I mean, we have our hosts and founders are incredibly talented people who aren't just good on mic, but they have experienced what Washington, D.C. is actually like and what passing laws is actually like. So they bring a lot of credibility when they say, here's what we actually need to do to get progressive legislation passed. You're going to listen to them. They know what it is, and they're not just advising some talking head on CNN to go out and do it. I think the appeal of the podcast is you're really getting the inside look. So playing on that credibility. And then our team behind the scenes also worked in politics in the White House. Tanya Somnader was the digital director for the Obama White House. And so she dreamt up this initiative, Vote Save America, basically saying, what do we wish we'd had in terms of support when we were in the White House, and what can we give to our audience? Now, in terms of actually engaging the audience, we came up with a tiered system, like a tiered level of engagement. So the entry level into the program is you just listen to the podcast or you interact with us on social media. I'd say like the middle tier is, you sign up for the website, maybe you give money to a race. And then there's a top tier of engagement, which we wanted to give people, which is something we called Adopt a State. So a lot of our audience is not necessarily in swing states. So we said, if you are concerned about the election, you want to get involved, here are ways that you can actually volunteer, not just give money. We had hundreds of thousands of people sign up. I think over 300,000 people sign up to go volunteer in different states all around the country just because they listen to the podcast. I think it's a really interesting and unique, and I think something that will be replicated in the future approach to content, to say that you're not just a passive listener. You're not just a passive consumer in all of this content. These are things that you care about. You don't have to just sit at home and be mad. And we are not only going to inform you, we are going to give you the tools and the tiers to get involved.
I think that concept of not just being a passive listener, but being an active listener is something that's a huge takeaway for everybody listening, whether it's politics, sports, media, entertainment, whatever intersection you sit at. I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the access to these personalities. You mentioned it earlier, group thread. This was something that, us at Tagboard, we were excited to, help you bring to life. And for people who don't know what group thread is, we've got a little video that we'll be able to roll so that people can check it out. But Elijah, while we're rolling this, maybe you can talk everybody through what was this group thread concept? How'd you guys come up with this?
Sure. So what we're looking at here was our Democratic National Convention coverage. We would go live with our hosts. They'd do a little bit of news coverage, but then the majority of what we would do in one little corner of the screen, and then play our Slack thread of people just talking about what they were seeing. And how we came up with this was, how do you watch political events? How do you watch debates? You watch the DNC, what have you? You watch it on your couch, texting your friends or going on Twitter. What if you could just have access to the smart personalities that you're going to go listen to live in real time and just see them cracking jokes in the way that you're actually doing with your friends? And so that was something that was just made sense for us, also because it didn't make sense for, we saw a lot of people watching the debates and being on camera and commenting over it, but you want to watch the debates. You want to hear what they're saying. So we wanted to give people something that they could not have to have that viewing experience interrupted and have this, I guess, even a more passive second screen experience. And it's something that we did for Trump's first impeachment, for all the Democratic debates, and that we're going to continue to do. And these things crushed for us. We did so much better in terms of concurrent viewers than many mainstream news outlets that were carrying the events themselves, or other commentators that had themselves in a boxing box.
I like what you said there. It's like friends, watching friends or interacting with friends, interacting with your personalities, and you're just seeing it all take, action right in front of you in the Slack thread, in the group thread. How did you pull it off? If someone was watching this and they're like, well, that's kind of cool. How did you pull that off to show, the group thread and everything like that?
Everything is very held together with paper clips and gum here. So, it's me in my house just with OBS screen capping our Slack thread in one window, and carrying the actual event through my laptop, exported to HDMI, just brought it all into OBS in the different windows. Our graphics team put together a little overlay. And of course, Tagboard, towards the end, the Democratic debates came in and gave us some live fact checking. So it's really 3 elements and a graphical overlay. So the Tagboard fact check, the event itself, and the Slack thread plus the graphics. Now, I will say there's a funny rights problem that we had early on with the debates. CNN and MSNBC, they're very tricky with rights. So when we didn't have rights for an event, we got weird and creative. It's one of the things you can do when you're at a little company like this. And we knew that people were tuning in to hear the personalities, but we wanted to give them something to look at. So we literally took cutouts, like cut them out with scissors of like Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, put them on popsicle sticks, and had two interns hold them in front of a little stage and just act out the debate in real time. We're talking tens of thousands of concurrents watching this alongside our commentary. And, it's fun to get to try that stuff, and it's even better when it works.
Next time we do this, I'm making popsicle sticks of Sky and I, so that instead it should really just be our cutouts instead of our faces. Held together by paper clips. I've got a 60-foot cable run to my router that's in a way back bedroom. So, producing from home, we get creative, and I get that. Speaking of group thread, that was perfect for digital. In a pre-COVID world, Crooked did live shows as well. I know we've got some video as well from a show you guys did at Radio City Music Hall. So group thread versus this in-person show that you at home are looking at right now. Talk a little about what translates from in-person to digital and what just doesn't translate.
It's so funny because this was a huge part of business before COVID. And obviously we had to stop in February. We had a whole slate of live shows planned for 2020. So that hurt us to lose, but kind of counterintuitively, it was good for us on the video and digital side because we were able to just really simplify and focus on what works, which is just consistency, gaming the algorithm on places like YouTube and in the podcast app, making sure our release dates were consistent. And the thing about these big live events is they simply don't translate to digital platforms. I mean, I've never had someone ask me to watch a conversation show, and there are so many, and I know networks try so hard to make them work, like Dave Letterman's show on Netflix, for instance. But no one ever says, you have to watch this conversation show. Look at this jib shot. Look at this background. It really does just come down to, hearing the people that you find credible talking about the issues that you care about. And like I said, it's weird seeing something like Group Thread, which looks like it could have Minesweeper in it, just absolutely crushed because we just hit all the right little algorithm formulas right there, versus this fantastic show that we did at Radio City Music Hall, or the show I got behind me at the Greek Theater, just get respectable, a couple tens of thousands of views, but nothing groundbreaking.
Watching Favreau play Minesweeper, I'd tune into that. That's an electric experience right there. I could get down with that. Your flagship podcast, Pod Save America, it's constantly near the top of the charts. There's a lot of really good podcasts out there and that drive huge numbers, big engagement. I think something that not everyone does as well, though, as you do and the team at Crooked Media does, is taking that podcast and then promoting it across all your digital platforms, creating original content off of the podcast that's not even part of the podcast. What's the key to promoting a good podcast and building something like you did there with Pod Save America?
Oh, just like I said, just play the platforms. Don't try to drive to the podcast, or don't try to drive from the podcast. I try to tell people all the time, putting something, or how do I say this? Scrolling through Twitter and then seeing a link to a podcast is not a realistic conversion. I don't know anyone who's going to just be scrolling through news and say, I'm going to go listen to an hour-and-a-half podcast right now. So don't think of it as a marketing tool for your podcast in terms of actual conversion. Just have the best Twitter presence possible. Have the best YouTube presence possible. Don't play that game, play the titling and SEO game. Make the thumbnails just the way they want you to make them. Change your titles. We use puns for all of our Pod Save America titles in feed. We just go through Brunt Force, SEO, Trump and Biden did this today, titles for YouTube, because it's tied into Google. You just have to play that game. So just recognizing what each platform's strengths are is how you grow your product. And then they all help grow each other just kind of through like soft brand engagement and just a constant presence in people's feeds.
It's huge. It's huge to think about it that way. And I think that's great advice. You go way back with our fellow guest coming up here next, Michael Bucklin. We'll hear from him in just a minute. But he did note on a LinkedIn post recently, he said that you, Elijah, live in the year 2030, and you can give us a look at what the future looks like. So consider your secrets safe here with us. What do you see next in the digital media landscape? I know you guys are hard at work planning what comes next in 2021. What's on the forecast?
Man, I'm not sure. I see like a kind of like hollowing out of the middle of like the mid-sized firm, the mid-sized digital production firm. I mean, when you get to a scale like Buck works out at Fox, you're not going anywhere. And the thing that's really going to change, I think, is the rise of places, like Patreon, and the ability of people to just make and produce their own content and support themselves. And I think that we saw it a little bit in like 2017, 2018, of these digital media outlets just get hammered by like a Facebook algorithm change. And I think that trend is going to continue as people realize more and more that the editing tools, as you're seeing on TikTok, and the production tools just become more accessible, that they can promote and create their own content without needing as many specialized people in the middle, both in terms of on the production side or on the distribution side. So I'd say a hollowing out of the content middle class, if I had to put it that way.
I love that. You could stick that on a t-shirt. That sells. I love that a lot. Thanks, Elijah. We appreciate you joining us today. I know your setup's held together with duct tape and paper clips, much like mine. I got a light balancing, and it could go down at any moment. But we'll see you back here later in the show. Thanks for jumping on here and answering a few questions, though.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Right on. If you have questions for Elijah, tweet them now using hashtag Storyteller. That's hashtag Storyteller. Elijah will be back for an interactive Q&A like we mentioned later in the show. But first, let's check in with STN Digital's David Brickley for today's Social Spotlight.
What's up, friends? I hope you're having an amazing time at Storyteller. It's David Brickley, owner and CEO of STN Digital, and we are doing a social spotlight each and every day. I got two words for you: dog face. Dude pretty much single-handedly changed the music industry forever. I'll break down why. So in 1977, Fleetwood Mac released their hit single, Dreams. 43 years later, Dogface 208 releases his video. Video has a cool 70 million views. Mick Fleetwood records his own version, amassing 16.3 million views. Mick gains 369,000 followers after launching his account with that tribute. Dreams earned 16.1 million US streams according to Billboard. TikTok then capitalizes by using the video in TV commercials and runs it during the MLB playoffs. Dreams goes from getting an average of 490,000 streams per day to over 1 million per day. Downloads of the song spiked 374%. 134,000 tribute videos are made on TikTok. Those videos total 500 million views. Ocean Spray buys him a truck, Cranberry Red. Dogface gets a publicist, launches a merch store, and after 42 years, Fleetwood Mac's album reaches top 10.
Those numbers are bonkers. Thank you, David. We'll be back with another social spotlight tomorrow for day 2 of Storyteller. But to close out day 1, we've got none other than Fox Sports' Michael Bucklin. If you've been following our Storyteller podcast for the last few years, you're familiar with Michael. He was one of our original guests. As the vice president of Fox Sports Digital, he manages it all: production, distribution, and strategic integration of content across digital and social.
So that's the technical explanation. The real of it, his team develops content to complement only the smallest of small sporting events in the world. We're talking the World Cup, pretty small, the World Series, pretty small, college football, NFL, Daytona 500. Michael, it's good to get away from the small stuff and come to a big time program like Storyteller. So excited you're here with us.
Sky, Christine, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, we have to tell the viewers at home a quick funny story before we jump in here. We asked all of our storytellers, hey, share your best on the job photo with us. You probably saw some of them on the landing page that you're watching down below. And at the time, Michael said, hey, Christine, I really don't have a lot of great on the job photos. We thought it'd be a better way to see where these people work rather than a typical headshot. He said he didn't have a lot of great on the job photos. And then I think we've got the photo that he hit us up with. If you don't recognize the three guys he's standing next to, three all-time football greats. Casually, you've got Joe Montana, Brett Favre, Drew Brees. So, Buck, you've got to give us the story behind this not so great on the job photo.
Oh, man. People have been sending this to me all week. So the Super Bowl last year, the Super Bowl was on Fox down in Miami. And we decided to put a production together, a Super Bowl watch party, which is like a live interactive co-viewing experience while you're watching the Super Bowl on the big screen. We have an interactive experience. It's on your phone or on your laptop. We decided to go big. We decided to get some Hall of Famers, Brett Favre and Joe Montana. And we got a current player in Drew Brees. And we had Joel Klatt, one of our analysts, host it. And you could basically watch the Super Bowl. And if you had a question for Joe Montana, you could ask him a question. You could ask Drew Brees a question. You could ask Brett Favre a question. And they basically answered fan questions and told stories about the Super Bowl for about 3 straight hours. And afterwards, I think most of us in this industry, it's kind of not cool to take a picture with the star. Every once in a while, you got to use your silver bullet, and that was one of them. So
you can't walk away from that.
Perfect time to use the silver bullet. Not at all.
Yeah.
So because of that, we want everyone at home. We want to see your best on the job photo. Scroll that camera roll. May have to go pre-pandemic, most likely, but we know what's in there. We want to see if you can top Buck's photo. Tweet it now using hashtag storyteller. We're going to check out the best ones. We're going to send prizes to the winner. If you missed the prizes earlier, we got sweatshirts, we got notebooks, we got everything to send out to some of the best answers out there in just a few minutes.
So for
Buck,
people who don't know you, Michael, go ahead. Go ahead, Sky.
Kristen and I are so in tune here that we both want to know your story. Tell us about your role at Fox Sports.
So role at Fox Sports, I manage the digital content team. And that team is the group of people that put content on the Fox Sports app, the Fox Sports website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, anywhere you can get content, audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Pods, anywhere you can get content. We make content for those platforms. We have a really strong team that's producing live interactive videos like the watch party I told you about earlier. We have a team that's handling social media. We have a team that's handling all the written editorial that you see on our website and our app. We have a team of designers. We have a team of technical engineers. We have a team of people that support the broadcast that you see every day on FS1, and even a team that supports the talent. We have a roster of 250 talent here at Fox Sports. A lot of household names that we like to say are one of the best influencer networks in sports. People like A-Rod and Big Papi and Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and to our daytime studio shows like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp and Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd. So we have a team that supports just about every single thing that this company does, and they work pretty much morning, noon, night, weekends, holidays, you name it.
What do they say? Sports never sleeps, right? You've mentioned a few times watch parties. I want to dive into this idea of watch party. Your team really capitalizes on these. And I think especially in this last year with an audience wanting to feel more connected. For those of you who haven't had a chance to tune into a watch party, we've got some video here, show you a little behind the scenes and what those look like. Michael, where'd the idea first come from to produce something like this?
Sure. We try to lean into our strengths here. And we think that one of the biggest strengths our company has is live events. We have the World Cups, men's and women's. We have the Super Bowl every 3 years. We have something like 40% of NFL viewership, the NFC Championship, which we just had this past Sunday. And we've always really good at covering live events that were on our air. And we thought, how do we put together a complimentary experience for those events? And how one that specifically is engineered for the digital fan. And so we ended up creating these watch parties and that were live during these events that were on our air. And it would eventually stretch to, do watch parties for events that were not even on our air, just because that live element, being live in those live event windows, is so important to us. So if you're going to create an event that, a watch party, it's an alternative experience to what you see on air, you got to do it differently, right? You got to give people a choice. If they want to listen to the best announcers to do it, and they want to sit back and have a lean back experience, they have that. We have absolutely fantastic announcers. Competitors have fantastic announcers. We are not trying to supplement that. What we're trying to do is provide a differentiated experience for the fan that's looking for more of an interactive experience. And so when you watch our watch parties, you're going to notice, just like this broadcast, you can ask the talent, or we call them talent personalities. You can ask the personalities questions, and your tweet or your comment will end up on screen. The talent or the personalities will address it. They'll answer it for you. But these interactive experiences are just a different way to enjoy a game. We think they're the future. There's no reason there should even be one interactive watch party for a live event. I see a future where there's different themes, different styles for different types of users, different platforms. But we've started with Joel Klatt, our college football analyst, in a conference room with his researcher, and they watched a college football playoff. And we looked up and we go, wow, we got 3 million views. People watching a person watch a game. That's pretty interesting. Let's see if we can double down on this. And 2 years later, Joel Klatt is sitting in that room down in Miami with Joe Montana, Drew Brees, and Brett Favre. No offense to his researcher, but we upped our game a little bit. We hired new directors, we hired new graphic producers, we hired additional producers to produce every talent that you see in a box or see on set. And we just plan on continuing to iterate on top of this and make it better and better and better.
And one thing similar to what you just said, Michael, to what Elijah said, is still doing this stuff even if you don't own the rights, right? You guys did one for the college football national championship. It was on ESPN. It wasn't on your network yet. You have this second screen experience. It's interactive. You get to hear Joel Klatt, Reggie Bush, Joe Burrow break down this game in real time. I mean, there's no wonder it's got huge numbers because you set access to those personalities. What's the key to pulling it off though? Like, what goes into it? You mentioned you have, sounds like team on top of team on top of team. What if I didn't have a team? Like, how can you pull this kind of a thing off?
Sure. I mean, first of all, it takes really good booking, because we can be the best producers on the world, but if you don't like the person you're seeing on camera, it's not going to be that interesting, right? And we try to swing big. We try to swing big, like going after Joe and Brett and Drew. We just this past weekend, we had Michael Vick, Emmanuel Sanders, Greg Jennings. We brought in some big guests, like you said, for the college football edition. We brought in Joe Burrow. You try to bring in people that, there's timeline stoppers. You're scrolling. All of a sudden you see Joe Burrow live. That's pretty interesting. You're going to stop and check that out. From there, we got to put them in the best position to win. And there's a lot of different ways to do a watch party. You could do a watch party in which they are live, breaking down the game the whole time. But that's kind of what they do on TV, right? And so if you're going to give them some, the fan at home, a choice to do something different, you might want to watch a different style. And so we tell these people silence is okay. We want people to feel like they're in a living room with you, right? Joe Burrow, if he was watching the national title game, is not talking for 3 straight hours. He's taking breaks. He's eating chips. You often see our people eating. They got to go up and go to the bathroom. They can get up and go, right? It's a totally laid back experience. And if you have a question for them, you lob that question in, which means we have to have a group of producers, probably similar to you have now, who are scanning the internet for people who are asking questions, either using the hashtag or responding to our tweets or responding to our posts. So that's what goes into it. And you're really trying to find a few just golden stories, right? You kind of study your talent. You kind of see what people are asking online. You do a little pre-production and you're like, you know what? If this particular player on the field does something good, I know one of my talent has a story about that player. You try to really take that out of the talent. And that then, in addition to being an interesting live experience, becomes an incredible VOD that you share afterwards that can just grow viewership forever and serve fans in a more evergreen way.
It's those golden stories that really are the standout moments that are really hard to manufacture, but when you see them, you've struck gold on those.
Yeah, Christine, there was a moment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
There was a moment in the Super Bowl where we asked Joe Montana a question about getting nervous in a big game. And this was completely unprepared. And this is the type of thing I think you get when you don't have a scripted show. Joe says, guys, how I used to settle my nerves is I figured out that the phone's on the bench. You can tell 9 to get out. So I would just call my wife on the sidelines. And the first time anyone had ever been told that story. And of course, it only came up because we were talking about how to settle your nerves in a Super Bowl. I think it's like that gold that you could have never planned for. You can only really create the environment for it. But if you plan the right way, sometimes you get lucky and those stories come out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Dial 9 to get out. So I imagine those watch parties, those were easier to produce when you could all be in one place. Obviously, the last year has thrown us a bit of a curveball. See, I promised my bad baseball buns weren't done. 2023 is a bit of a curveball here with figuring out how to do it from home, how to produce from a bunch of different homes at once, living rooms, garages. Speaking of, we've got some behind the scenes photos because you guys have pulled off some crazy, crazy setups. What went into this? How did you make production? Production for you guys didn't stop just because of the pandemic.
Yeah, we certainly didn't wake up one day and figure out how to do it. We were very lucky. That for years, innovation is sort of core to who Fox Sports is. And I know everyone says that, and it sounds a little cliche, but Fox Sports is the company that put the yellow line on the football field. And this is crazy, but they're the first company to put the score bug on a football game. They called it the Fox Box. They made the hockey puck glow. And more recently, I think we went fairly viral for the Mega Cam. I don't know the technology behind it, but essentially the live portrait shot on the sideline of football games. And that really runs, in the family, so to speak. Like there's a real pride in being innovative and trying things and not being afraid to fail. And that whole not being afraid to fail thing is really hard to teach, right? But we would take these productions on the road. We didn't know if the Wi-Fi was going to hold up. We didn't know what the power was going to look like. We didn't know if the production equipment was going to overheat, but we just kind of committed to it. And we were so fortunate to get the clearance from our bosses and the budget from our bosses to go shoot live shows at places like South by Southwest in Austin. We'd be shooting out of the back of a bar, and the closet is basically the control room. And, Elijah was talking about, bubblegum and popsicle sticks holding together a production. He was part of a lot of those productions. So that's where we learned it, right? But we had this incredibly strong team led by Mike Jankolovitz, our senior director of video operations, who has a real strong team with Ricardo and Daniela and Thomas Meeson and some great graphics producers. We have some great, we call them Tagboard producers, guys. We kind of use you as a descriptor, and Conrad Company and Danny Green. And these people just got used to producing these live interactive broadcasts from the weirdest places. Like I said, in the back of a bar in Austin, in Red Square in Moscow for the World Cup, from the Trocadero in Paris overlooking the Eiffel Tower at the Women's World Cup, from the grandstands at the Daytona 500 to, the bleachers from the World Series. And when you learn to produce live content and sort of get comfortable in that uncomfortable in these wild, unpredictable environments where there might be rain, unsure of the connection you're going to have. And all of a sudden the pandemic hits, there's a Hunter Thompson quote, right? When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. Well, the world got really weird and we just turned pro. And we called it the garage band because instead of being in studio, we started producing out of the garages and the apartments that you just showed in that video. Rick's garage is, now going to be in the Fox Sports Hall of Fame because we produce 900 hours of television content, to help out our TV team out of Ricardo's garage and Danny's apartment in Santa Monica. And it was those practice reps of the years that I think allowed that team to just kick into action and really bring a broadcast to the big screen.
It's really cool to hear how the challenges aren't too different the last 12 months than they were before when you're building a set in a foreign country, or you're going, like you said, you can't predict the weather or anything like that. Or today, half of the East Coast feels like they don't have internet. So like there's all these different things that you go through. What were the challenges then in the last 12 months? Were there the different challenges that your team had to overcome, and how'd you work through those?
Well, the first thing is keeping people safe, right? And so how do you put people in a safe environment that still allows them to successfully do their job? And so there was a lot of learning, not just how to do a remote production, but how to do it, perhaps isolate it, right? Because even those remote productions, we'd all be in one place at the same time. In this case, you got your director is in his garage. You got your associate director is in her apartment. You got your, Janko, our senior director, in his apartment in a different city. You got talent in 5 cities across America. You just kind of accept that you're not going to know what to do right away, and you just kind of commit to it. There's a lot of times where talent, don't know how to position their camera, and you got to get on before, and you got to teach them how to shape a shot. You got to work with them to get lighting. You got to kind of accept that the Wi-Fi is going to go out sometimes, or that someone is going to freeze, and you got to prepare your talent for those moments. And you got to prepare your staff that, hey, this won't be perfect, but we're going to keep progressing. And I thought the team just did an absolutely incredible job. I mean, I think that the way the team tackled those obstacles during the pandemic is something I would presume none of them will ever forget and will forever be proud of.
We've got people tuning in from all across industries, and everyone from being a part of really, really big networks to, universities who are working to produce live streams, to sports teams, to media who's transitioning off of traditional linear into a live stream. What would you say are the things, having done it all, what are the things not to do? If you could go back and just tell someone, hey, save yourself some time. Don't do this. We did it. It doesn't work. What's your best don't do this advice?
Well, first of all, you can easily come up with 45 reasons that these productions are bad ideas, right? Because no one wants to go dead while on the air. And that happened a few times, that did with some of the biggest talent on live television moments. And for the people who are involved in those moments, they feel horrifying in the moment. You get over it, right? You get 900 hours in, and that mess up in hour 10 is long in the past. That's the first thing, because if you focus on the reasons not to do it, you can find a million of them. But if you kind of commit to the process, you're like, you know what, this webcam that's on my laptop right now doesn't look that good, but we're finding better cameras, all right? Or doing this with an athlete who said he'd do this interview, but his connection's terrible and he's actually driving in his car. Just be prepared to leave that on the cutting room floor, or find technology that can take a low connection screen capture and figure out a way to piece it together on the back end, which is something that we did. But we really just try to ignore all the reasons not to do this stuff and really just try to focus on the long view of, like, if we stick to this and we keep doing it, it's going to get better. We also knew that, when you have a big, beautiful set or the Fox lot, which we have, the Elijah reference, this historic Fox lot, you're so used to these just beautiful sets with these huge LED HD monitor walls, all the bells and whistles you could ever want, connectivity to every feed you could ever want. And that goes away. And you kind of become equal with anyone in the world who can do a Zoom production. And so then you just try to lean into what your differences can be. And one of the things we did is we leaned into graphic design. And we're like, okay, if the whole world is going to be living in boxes, we would at least want to have the most beautiful boxes there are. And we just leaned into that. And our first couple of productions, we probably look back on them and cringe a little bit. But at first we thought, this is kind of low rent, low bar. Like, I'm not sure if this is like a championship level Fox Sports production. We just stuck with it. And every single one of our productions looked a little better and a little better and a little better. And now you look at them and you can't even recognize what we did 9 months ago.
They're clean, no question. You have Fox Bet, you have the social, you have live stat, you have everything in there, and it's a really all-inclusive viewing experience. It's really cool to watch it all come together. As we look ahead now, Michael, I know you mentioned Elijah's the guy that can see the future, but I know from talking with you and seeing what your team does, you have your eye on these trends as well. 2020 probably changed some of that roadmap to what we're looking at too. What do you see? What's your eye on in the future? Where are we headed with storytelling?
Sure. 2020 definitely fast-tracked a lot of the future that we saw coming, 2, 3, 4 years away also was here, right? I was like, it's here, whether you're ready for it or not. So I think we're all going to get better at these remote productions. That's one. I don't think we've even, really seen what a truly great remote production is. I have a feeling there were incredible entrepreneurs out there who, the second that they realized this is going to be a thing, they were like, okay, I got an idea. And those ideas are going to be hitting any day now, I can't tell you what that's going to look like, but one of the things that I'm really excited about, and it's like Elijah and I paid each other, to be this complimentary. Normally we just rag each other constantly, but I think community is maybe a corny cliche term, but that's the future. And I look at the community that Crook had built, and it's real. And if Tommy and John and gang, decided that they were going to go do something else, I bet you that community would follow them because that's how real that community is. I think that those communities tend to happen around people more so than brands. People like people more than brands. And I think we need to find more people that have these communities. And an example recently that I'd love to highlight is we hired a new college football analyst named RJ Young. RJ Young has never worked for a major media company before. RJ Young had 60,000 YouTube subscribers that would listen to him blog or vlog every single day. And when he announced that he was coming to Fox Sports, he didn't say, I just signed with Fox Sports. He said, we now work for Fox Sports. And he really meant it. He meant his community was now with Fox Sports. And when we were doing one of the watch parties that you showed earlier, the MLB World Series watch party, the host of that was, well, we had a few. We had Rick Ankiel, we had Nick Swisher, but we also had a young man named Ben Verlander. And Ben Verlander is the #1 MLB The Show player on Twitch. And when we asked him how he wanted to announce he was coming to Fox Sports, most people say, I want to tweet or on a press release. He's like, I want to tell my community that I'm going. And he went into his Twitch stream that night and he told his community, like, I'm going to do this thing with Fox Sports. And these people were just so happy for him. And he said, but an important part of this is you're all coming with me. And we were mind blown when we started that watch party. And we saw about 2,000 more people in that YouTube comment section than we've ever seen before. And they were just celebrating that they had made it to this new place, and they supported him like you never seen before. You see the advent of Facebook groups and these other communities that are popping up, but community feels extremely important as we move forward.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think I'll echo everyone at Tagboard who couldn't agree with you more. This idea of community, how simple to switch the word from I to we, and what a big difference that makes for viewers at home. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us and being generous with your time. We're not done with you just yet, but for now, I want to say thank you for joining us to chat with Sky and I.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And like we said, we're not done with Michael. So if you have questions for him or any of our storytellers today, Elijah or Barbara, they're going to be back in just a few minutes. Grab your phone, tweet them now using #storyteller. But first, I'm tossing it over to Tagboard's Nathan Peterson.
What's up, everyone? It's Nathan from Tagboard. Thank you all so much for joining the Storyteller Experience live today. I know quite a few of you here, but if we've yet to meet, please feel free to follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn and let's share some stories. I think the best part about being in this industry is being able to hear the behind the scenes stories from thought leaders and experts like Barbara and Buck and everybody else who will be joining us over this week. So thank you to all the storytellers that are joining us. Thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you guys for joining and interacting. Speaking of interaction, I know there's some prizes on the line for the best on-the-job photo. So I think I'm going to go ahead and tweet my own photo now, and I hope you will do the same because we want to see all the best ones that make us all smile. Okay, let's see what's going on.
Those photos are amazing. I'm seeing a bunch of familiar faces coming through. And so it's so great to have you all joining us watching all show long. We've been asking you to interact with us, to share your questions, to use hashtag storyteller. So we are bringing it home here. We're bringing together all of our featured storytellers to share their secret sauce. Still time if you have questions for Barbara, Elijah, or Michael. Tweet them in, hashtag storyteller, but we've already got some great ones lined up here.
Love seeing everyone back. Let's get it started. First question coming in from Samantha Smith, and this one, Barbara, is for you. The question is, how do you leverage, support, and collaborate with players that create their own original content? Does that help amplify your own storytelling experiences with the MLB?
Sure. Thanks. I think that came from Samantha, you said, right? Thanks, Samantha.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a combination of a couple of different things, but certainly, players, fans, any kind of original content, authentic content, talking about our game, celebrating our game is a great thing. With the player social program that we mentioned, a number of those assets are provided to them in terms of, creating or leveraging some of that content to complement whatever they might be working on or working with. Or if they might have, their agents or even the clubs helping them with what they're putting together. So all in all, it's a great thing. And I think, the evolution of all that has continued to evolve, and looking forward to seeing more of that happen. And I think particularly as players come up to the major leagues, they're all Gen Z at this point too. So I think we'll just see a lot more of that to continue to evolve over time.
Next question we've got coming in from Anna Tobkin. Anna asks, which platform do you feel is best for second screen experiences like watch parties? Is it YouTube, Facebook? Is it worth pushing out everywhere or focusing on one? This probably makes sense for both Michael and Elijah maybe to answer, since you guys are both, doing a lot of different watch parties. Michael, let's start with you.
Well, I think that Twitter is the most live platform. So it tends to be the platform where the most amount of people are watching one screen and also using the second screen at the same time. So I think Twitter is a really important platform for that. It also tends to be one of the easiest to see replies, surface those replies, put those replies on screen and actually address them. It's really strong at that. We also tend to see that Facebook and YouTube get the most viewership over time. So in the live window, Twitter seems to be the best experience. But for some reason, people just love going back and finding the best moments of these broadcasts, even on these other platforms. And you'll wake up one day and be a week later, and you'll have 100,000 more views on YouTube. Whereas Twitter's more getting viewership during that actual event.
Elijah, have you had the same experience?
I'd say for views, YouTube, I understand what Buck's saying. Just personally, like the Twitter experience just conflicts so much with watching something. To me, it's hard. But I have to give some love to Twitch here. I mean, I feel like that is the place where watch party is just completely platform native. And if you see what some creators are doing there, especially in the political space with Hasanabi, and what AOC did and came on when she did a Twitch stream that got 400,000 concurrent viewers playing Among Us. That platform is where I think a lot of the innovation is happening, and a lot of the things that, Buck referenced it with the Twitch streamer they brought on. A lot of things that we're trying to do here at Crooked, we're just taking innovation from people who've been doing it on that platform natively for years.
Great responses. Couldn't agree more. And sticking in line with platforms and deciding which ones to use, we're going to use a question here from Betsy, who, Barbara, this is for you. She asked, you mentioned that MLB focuses on emerging platforms. How do you decide which platforms to focus on?
Thank you. That's a great question. And it's amazing because it just always seems like everywhere you turn, there's yet another platform to consider. So I would say, just generally speaking, I think we're trying to find out, where that young audience is. That's really where it starts, and seeing how they engage and try to go there and go be where they are. And I think you always have to be ready to kind of jump and see, but really experiment. I mean, I think that's probably a core part of it. So in terms of where, I think we continue to evolve, a couple of the platforms I mentioned earlier, but also TikTok, Twitch, as was just mentioned, we're looking at, we talked about communities. I think Discord is an interesting platform. So those are the places that we want to be where those young fans are and where there's those communities.
You mentioned TikTok. We also got a question on that too that came in from Michael. He said, how are you leveraging TikTok to build an audience, to build with a younger audience, and Barbara, we can start with you, and Elijah and Michael, feel free to chime in if you guys are doing anything with TikTok as well. I know it's one of the most up and coming platforms we've seen in the last year.
Sure. On the TikTok side, I mean, there's such an amazing baseball and softball community, actually. So we're really trying to leverage that community and a really young community of not just, young people, but also the high school and college age kids that we're really excited about. And using that platform of TikTok to really lean in on the players' personalities, leveraging our account, but also as more and more players are getting their own TikTok accounts, really leveraging that, and really a great opportunity to showcase their personalities.
I think on our side, I would point to something that Buck said when he was doing his section, which is just taking people who are really good on the platform already and inviting them to come and join your community, bring their community with them. Then something that Barbara said, and why I would support that is she was talking about the importance of authentic content. There's something that I like to call like the influencer uncanny valley, which is like when someone is trying to be authentic on a platform they don't understand. And so like you try to put someone on TikTok who doesn't know how to do it, and the viewers can just sniff that out so quickly. I think it's just so much better to find the people, the up and coming voices who align with your brand's values and bring them into your community. And so I think that's kind of how we've looked at the platform. We've all had thinking about our going on and trying to be themselves there, and thought like, how can we start to bring that community into ours?
Buck, I'll let you finish that up.
One of our core tenets is access. And in lieu of sort of determining what our TikTok strategy will be forever moving forward, one of the early things we did is we just said, can we use it to take people behind the scenes at the events that we go to? And so we brought it to the Super Bowl last year, and we gave it to a lot of talent and said, tell us about what you're doing, or interact with fans that are in the space. We were set up on the beach. That got derailed a little bit when all of a sudden you couldn't go to events anymore. So we got to think about whether our access strategy is something that can come back soon, or we're going to have to adapt and find a new way. But mostly right now, we are just completely, utterly fascinated by it. David Brickley's interstitial earlier, I mean, you can't ignore it. It is an absolute beast, and we want to do it in an authentic way, just like Elijah said.
Let's get into a little bit. One more question here from Darren. And Elijah, I'll let you kick this one off. Darren asks, what role does written storytelling have in 2021 and beyond?
Oh, man. I think that, first of all, written content is, unless something changes fundamentally on Facebook, is always going to have a home in digital media. It is just so well equipped to be on Facebook. And you can have the same tools that the New York Times has to promote your news, your content through written content on Facebook. And then in terms of other platforms, I really just think it's finding like clever ways to couple your talent and your non-written content to build off of what exists from whether your people are writing it or you're pulling it from somewhere else. An example I point to, something that we're working on here, is one of our hosts, Dan Pfeiffer, writes a newsletter, and he makes a lot of good political points there. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we get that into a video series on YouTube? So if he's going to go out and he's going to write a message, like a democratic messaging series of talking points, let's find like the video clips that best tie into that series of talking points, have him watch and react to that, and do a video version. And so finding ways to build off what your smart, talented people are already doing. When you've like got personality driven content already, written is just another way, I would say, outside of Facebook, to build video and podcast content.
Barbara, the writers such a big part of a traditional sport like baseball, and there's still such a central part in it. How do you kind of leverage that written part for your storytelling in 2021?
Sure. I think written will always have a place, just generally speaking. MLB.com is certainly a priority for us, always has been, always will be. And it's just going to continue to evolve, just like storytelling continues to evolve across all other different forms or whatnot. I also think on the written side, I think just trying some more snackable kind of bite-sized content will be much more where things will continue to evolve and head. While also there's a place for longer form content. I definitely see at least us on the MLB side doing, some more of that snackable bite-sized content. Whether it's a headline with just a couple paragraphs or whatnot, but something that evolves like that.
We can't let you all go without asking you our marquee question. And Michael probably knows what's coming because he did this on the podcast a few months back. We ask all of the storytellers who join Storyteller the same question, and that's in 3 words. The best stories are blank, blank, and blank. So, Barbara, you are our leadoff batter. I'll toss it over to you to get us started there.
Well, it's a great question. I think the 3 words that come to my mind right away are authentic, inspirational, whatnot, and relevant. I think just you have to be relevant.
I love it. Elijah, what about you?
I would say personality driven, colorful, and I'll just say funny. I mean, I don't like anything more than just like a funny story. So
it's awesome. And Bucklin, bring it home.
I think emotional. I think that Tom Rinaldi yesterday told a story about Aaron Jones, Packers running back, and the connection he had with Ethan, a local fan, and we actually, we're so happy to have Tom Rinaldi on our team because he's like the man who has the voice that makes people cry, and he just, no one better to tell a story that is a tough story to tell than Tom Rinaldi. He's the best at it, and we're so happy to have him. And then on the flip side, an emotional story could also make you laugh, and we have someone like Charlotte Wilder, who we just hired. She's one of our multimedia personalities who, one of the things she's best known for is experiencing a WWE WrestleMania for the first time without having any idea what she was walking into. I mean, just imagine that. And I think having that range to tell stories that elicit emotion is really important. I think that evergreen stories are important. Stories that are good today and they're good in 10 years those are some of the best stories. It's how stories travel through time. And of course, memorable stories, I would make my third. If a story sticks with you, you remember it later, it's probably a good story.
Those are 9 amazing words. Look, we want to give a huge, huge thank you to all 3 of you, amazing storytellers, for joining us, sharing your time, sharing your stories. So thank you all for being a part of Storyteller today. And of course, we want to give a huge, huge thank you to you at home for joining us. In case you're wondering if you can produce a show like this, everything you've seen on today's show has been produced with Tagboard software, from the graphics to the real-time content to the trivia to the 2 of us here who are sitting here in front of you today. But we couldn't make it all happen without our amazing production partner at STN Digital.
And we hope that you're walking away entertained, and then more importantly, with an idea or 2 that you can take back to your teams, back to your companies, and test them out. If Tagboard can help bring any of your ideas to life, we're just a click away. Scan the code. There you see it again, bottom of the screen. Get in touch with us. We have special limited time offers just for all of you, our Storyteller viewers, our community who's joined us here today. Whether you're new to the Tagboard fam or one of those Tagboard triple OGs joining us who wants access to our brand new interactive polling.
And look, that's just day 1. We've got a lot more in store for you over the next 2 days. So here's Tagboard's Josh Decker with a look at what's coming up tomorrow.
Hey, everybody. Josh Decker here. Man, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed the day as much as I did. And the best news is that we have 2 days left of amazing content. In fact, tomorrow we are kicking things off with the NFL media Chan Smith as she gears up for the Super Bowl. She's the mastermind behind all the amazing social integrations you see on the NFL Network. Plus, Altice's Karen Horn. She's been busy at Cheddar with recent coverage of the inauguration. Before Altice, Karen helped strategize a couple of, small projects for Disney. You may have heard of them, ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. Wow. Also joining the storyteller stage, the UFC's Eric Yee, who will share a unique perspective as one of just a handful of people who lived on Fight Island. And last but certainly not least, Dan Cho from Warner Media. Dan is the VP of Social and Digital Marketing at TNT, TBS, and True TV. And he's ready to talk about the newest hit, the Go Big Show. And just like today, we're keeping the rest of the week interactive. So go ahead and tweet out your questions to these amazing storytellers using the hashtag Storyteller. Thank you guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.